Welcome to Transforming Work with Sophie Wade, exploring the future of work. Find out what's going on, disruptions, evolutions, opportunities, challenges, and interventions in our multi-generational distributed organizations. With a new tech and talent focus, discover what you need to know to stay upskilled and relevant and ensure your business keeps its competitive edge. Sophie investigates the promise and reality of the future of work now and as we look ahead. She interviews people who are changing work experiences and practices and shares how we can each transition smoothly and successfully to effective and more productive new ways of working.
Hi! This episode is about reframing and reconsidering the role of work in our lives and what more is plausible and reasonable for it to encompass. What different decisions are being made, prompted by pandemic conditions, constraints, and reflections, as well as generated by changing and emerging possibilities. Notably, since the Great Recession, success in life has broadened in scope and definition. Younger generations especially have been exploring and expanding what a successful life means. And within that, what do we want for our lives? What more do we feel comfortable desiring and striving to achieve, including health and happiness? We've read about and seen extraordinary burnout experienced by so many managers and employees since the pandemic. This has been causing those and others to reevaluate what they want to achieve and how they're going to achieve it, including how finding purpose can realign their work and convert stress and struggle to pursuit of passion. Whatever challenges they are facing and opportunities are newly available, more and more workers are considering what should be the emphasis on work and the desired cadence of their working lives. What offerings are you enabling for employees at your company so they can live work differently and enjoy it all more? I'm delighted to be talking to Michelle Coulson, founder and chief remote rebel of Remote Rebellion, whose mission is to enable people to live the life they choose by getting a remote job that suits the life they design, with freedom and flexibility and time for more leisure, connection, and relationships. Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Hello. I'm super. Thank you. How are you?
I am very well indeed. You sound super, and you just told me that you just did what before you came on this interview? Just tell me, because it is actually a good intro into your life.
I am CrossFit workout followed by a sauna and very rushed ice bath.
And I do see these beautiful tropical leaves and steps going up to a cabana, but we'll get to that later. So, Michelle, you are a remote worker, but that's not where you started. At the very beginning, you studied travel at college. Why?
I didn't want to go to work. I'd heard being a student was fun, so I'm going to do a degree. What can I do a degree in? And I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I just knew I wanted to travel. I knew I loved travel. So I thought I'll do a tourism degree, and it seemed like a good thing to do at the time. So I didn't really think too much through. I just kind of was like, this sounds good. And it turned out to be a little bit of a Mickey Mouse degree, as some people call it, because I didn't really learn too much. I had the most amazing experience, and I didn't necessarily use the degree, but I have no regrets in doing it. It was, and it got me on. I guess it got me on the path that I'm on now, of like really enriching that love of travel.
And quite soon after that, you did actually then become a tour guide in Thailand, right?
Yes, I was a tour leader in Thailand and also in Australia.
How did you get to Thailand? Travel and being a tour guide are two different things. They're very related, I think.
2009 is when I graduated, and it was a very, very bad year to graduate. And if you remember, it was really hard to get work. I was in Manchester living in my sister's spare room. I couldn't find work in even a supermarket. I applied for everything. I ended up working in a bar. I hated it. I'm not a night person. And my friend said to me, hey, come to Australia. There's loads of jobs here and you can get paid X dollars an hour. Okay, I'll do that. So I borrowed some money off my brother-in-law because you had to have a certain amount of money in the bank and get a working holiday visa. Went over to Australia and worked in the outback for a little while, flipping burgers. Basically, it was not the vision I had of Australia. I had this vision that everyone had six packs and everyone had a surfboard under their arm, and here I was, full of truckers passing through eating burgers. So that wasn't what I imagined.
But it's a very cool country, right?
Really cool. Yeah, I had a blast. And I remember getting to Brisbane, I'd ran out of money, and I don't like it here. And you know when you're just in a bad place that you don't like the place that you're in just because your headspace is there. What do I want to do? And then this job ad came up for be a tour leader in Thailand. And before I went to Australia, I'd traveled around for a little bit. And oh my God, any chance to get back there, I would love that. And the company that was advertising was based in Sydney. So I'm going to go to Sydney, I'm going to have an interview. And I got the job. And went to Thailand, worked there for 8 months, and absolutely had a blast.
I did live in Asia for 5-6 years. After both England and Brisbane, Sydney, Thailand is a very different place. And it's very different to be living in Asia and working, and that's where you are. It's not just a 1-week vacation. What was that experience like for you?
The very first time I went to Thailand, I did it was actually before that. It was a volunteer trip with university to help in a tsunami volunteer centre, so teaching kids English and just doing a bit of work there. And something sparked Southeast Asia or Thailand specifically at this point really sparked something in me that I felt like I was a better person there. I was more relaxed. I was more patient. I just felt more at peace, and I guess I didn't have the emotional intelligence then to put those words, but I just felt something and I didn't really think too much about it. I just thought, because it's a holiday, right? Of course I'm going to feel good. But then going back the second time to actually work from there, I felt that again. And that was whilst I was working. There was something about the people, about the food, about the weather, about the nature, just all of it combined just felt comforting and I felt more at peace there. So I absolutely loved working there. I tried to learn a bit of the language. It's a difficult one because it's tonal. But everything about Thailand and everything about the Southeast Asia region for me, it just has always felt so comforting.
Then your career took a different track and you did some recruitment and digital marketing. What were the choices you were making then and what took you on those particular trajectories?
So I got back from Thailand. The reason I stopped the job in Thailand is essentially I was drinking too much. It was very much a party role. I can't do this lifestyle anymore. I got mistaken for being pregnant on a tube in London. Okay, something needs to happen now. So I went back and my friend said, well, what about working for STA Travel? It's a travel company. You get to sell tours. You've got travel experience. Right. So I did that for a little bit in Leeds and then got an opportunity to work in the product team. So I actually get to put the packages together in the brochure in London. I really didn't want to move to London. The thought of it, I was like, I don't want to move to London. It's busy. No one's happy. But I did anyway and ended up loving it, absolutely loving it the minute I got down there. And I just had a really good a group of people down with me. So working there was amazing. The people who worked for STA loved travel. So it was we all had this common love and passion for travel. The money wasn't very good, and I wanted to go on a round the world cycle. That was my plan. I wanted to. That was my plan. So
that's pretty ambitious.
Yeah, I wanted to save, and I thought, okay, but how can I get some good money quickly so I can do this around the world cycle because it's not working in travel. My friend said, hey, what about working on luxury yachts in the south of France? Oh, tell me about that. And they said, you can save, it's tax-free. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. So I did a training course, went to Antibes in the south of France, worked on a boat for a month, hated it, got fired because I went on a date that never ended basically, and I ended up getting engaged to the guy. That's
a story.
There's a longer story to that, but we haven't got time for that. We didn't get engaged right there, but we fell in love, and he was much more worked in finance, worked white collar jobs. He hadn't kind of floated around like I had, like a free spirit. It was very much you buy a house, you get married, you do that. So I kind of went along with that ride, to be honest, and we decided to move to London. And so he was from, strangely enough, he was from Australia, Irish Australian. So we moved to London, and it was time to get a proper job. It's time to grow up,
Okay.
get a mortgage, get married, and
Ooh,
have kids, and do what you're supposed to do.
huge.
Yeah.
Huge change.
So as luck or serendipity would have it, I remember meeting with my friend Joe, who worked as a tour leader with me in Thailand, and he was working in recruitment. And he said, "Why don't you
Mm-hmm.
get into recruitment? The money's good. You'd be good at it." I was like, "Okay, I'll give that a go." So I did, and I remember my first interview it was a tech recruitment agency, and they asked me, like, what are your tech skills like? And they're not good. And I just blagged it. I was like, I grew up with my dad, and he loves computers, all true. Like, he's great in computers.
Good.
I never once said
Right.
I was good at tech, but I found a way to kind of make it sound like I was without lying.
Right. Okay.
So I got into that, and again, loved it. I was good at it. I enjoyed it, and the money was good. So I did that for several years until I didn't like the recruitment agency industry. I didn't like the way that you were pushing people into jobs that they didn't want to do just so you could get your commission, just so you could get your paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I changed a little bit in that, and I became quite materialistic, which I hadn't been before. I bought a designer handbag, and I don't even like this stuff. What am I doing? So I ended up
Right.
working in-house recruitment for a company, an Australian company again, that was an app development agency, and I got to recruit the internal team, which was
Mm-hmm.
amazing, and that was probably the best job, other than being a tour leader, the best company I've worked for. They were just,
Mm-hmm.
it was amazing for so long. I loved it.
Then you actually got into community engagement. Was that the next step of the evolution? Or why did you leave this company that you enjoyed so much?
I loved it up until a certain point, and then when the pandemic happened, if you will, I realized I was super miserable in London. I was looking at a building site, everything was locked down. I was spiraling into what I could imagine. I've never been depressed before, but I could imagine that's what it was going into. It was
Sure.
I was in a really dark place, and my friend said to me, "Hey, your office is closed for the foreseeable. Why don't you come?" This is around early 2021. "Why don't you come to Bali and work from here for a couple of months?" Yeah, I guess I could do. So I did. Went out to Bali, and
Hang on a second. Didn't we have a husbandy person at this point?
I skipped a bit there. That ended in 2017, sadly.
I had a sense that the free spirit was coming back, and that I understand. So your friend says, okay, let's go to Bali. You're not bogged down by somebody else. So off you go. So Bali it is. Right.
So I came to Bali, absolutely loved it, but I was like, this is temporary. I'm going to have to go back to London when the office opens. Yeah, that's just the way life is. Again, you're in your early 30s, you're supposed to grow up and get a proper job, and this is what you do. And
Right.
when he did call, I felt like I was literally holding onto the post. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do it. I can't remember which way round it happened. But either way, the night before my flight, I got my PCR results, and I had COVID and I couldn't fly. That's a sign. I quit my job, and I said, if you won't let me work remotely from here, I have been for the past, however, I've been working remotely for the past year and a half.
Right.
I kept asking why, and he said, that's just policy. If you won't let me do this, then I quit. Didn't have savings. I had a mortgage in London I had to pay for, and I was like, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. So I was applying, searching, and struggling, actually. I've been in recruitment for 7 years, and I had a good network. It was a really good time to find recruitment work, because loads of companies were hiring again in 2021. And I struggled. I really struggled. If I'm struggling, and people who don't have my recruitment experience in the network, they must really be struggling. So the community role came out of, I guess, a necessity of someone was hiring remotely for this community role for helping women in tech move up and advance in their careers. And I was passionate about that cause, not necessarily passionate about community engagement then. So that was kind of a happy accident. And I was doing some freelance recruitment on the side as well.
Where did the idea for Remote Rebellion come from? Was it, well, I might as well do this, and then it became something? Or you sat down and said, I have this amazing idea. This is what I need to be doing. This is my purpose going forward.
When I came to Bali, one of the things that struck me was the amount of people that had come and just made it happen. Like, I want to do this. I'm going to do this, rather than, I mean, a lot of people have the attitude, and I've noticed this back home in the UK, it's, well, I can't do that because X, Y, Z, excuse. And it is an
Right.
excuse. Whether you've got kids, whether you've got debts, whether you've got that, there's a solution to it, but you just made the choice that you want to do something else, and that's fine. But be honest with yourself and say, oh, I'd love to do that, but instead I like my home comfort, so I want to stay at home. That's okay. So, but instead I was surrounded by all these people that were invigorating of, well, if I want something, I'm going to do it. And I loved that.
Right.
So I guess
Yeah.
we're speaking to more and more people like that. Okay, so this is my situation. This is what I love doing. And my friend said to me, oh, that's kind of like a job coach. Oh, I don't like, there's a lot of bad coaches in Bali. There's a lot of like 21-year-old life coaches that are not so qualified. And I didn't like that term coach. And I don't like that. But I looked back and I'd been doing that for the past few years. I've been helping friends with their CVs. I've been giving tips on where to apply to jobs, how to apply to jobs. And my friend was like, well, you could do that for a business, for a job. Can I? So I started working with people on a one-to-one basis. And I think it's this imposter syndrome, isn't it? People already know that stuff. I'm not telling them stuff that they don't already know. They're not going to learn anything from me. And then you end up working with someone and they're like, oh, I didn't know that. Thank you. Or I got this result because of what you said and I did this. This is useful. I am providing use. And like once you kind of got over that, doing on the one-to-one basis, the idea for Remote Rebellion came from a boat trip around the Komodo Islands. And it just was like a ping. And because I felt like it was a rebellion, because I was angry that we were being forced back into the office when we didn't need to be. We've been working great. A lot of people work better when they're able to have the freedom to choose where they work from. And I was annoyed that there was just no reason for not being able to work from where you want to. So that's hence the name. I really did feel like I was rebelling against the system, against the man, if you like.
Tell me more about that. I think that a lot of executives around the world, in whatever country you want to pick, don't really understand that sentiment. For Gen Zs, 27 and below, the majority of their work experience has been remote. So going into the office is actually something which is more the anomaly than the norm. But I'd love you to explain a little bit more about that feeling for yourself, but also many of the people that you were talking to and their experiences around that time coming through the pandemic. And then those light bulb moments in terms of what the revelations or the discoveries that people had, including yourself, about how things could be different.
I think in short, like to summarize it, there's more to life than work. And I think a lot of people either got made redundant, they were put on furlough, or they weren't working and they had all of this time. I don't think there's one person that came out of the lockdown without some reflection on something in their life. And certainly for me, I've kept myself so busy post breakup of like, theatre, pub, event, this, friends.
Right.
There was always something I was doing. And it wasn't until lockdown where you're forced to just sit there with your thoughts. I'm not actually happy. I've been keeping myself busy to put and subconsciously to actually feel the feel. And I hadn't really processed the breakup. I hadn't processed whether I was happy in London. Okay, what does make me happy? And it was my friend actually in Bali who said to me, yeah, Bali's my happy place. And it was like a movie scene. I was looking off into the distance, repeating, happy place, happy place. Where's my happy place? What makes me happy? The sea makes me happy. I am happy when I'm with a community. When are the times I've been happiest? When I was at university. Why was I happy at university? Because I had this community that I lived with, these people that I saw every day, my friends. And I'd realised being in my early 30s in London, everyone had moved out. They'd bought houses. They'd moved to the suburbs. I didn't have this because and there's a difference between people who have settled down, married, and had kids, and people who are single. The single people just went to the pub all the time, and I don't want to do that. I wanted something more. So for me, and I think a lot of other people, it was that reflection of what are the things that actually make me happy? What are the things that I don't want? What's important to me for me to be happy? And that's different to everyone. Some people, they want routine, and they want to be able to walk their dog on the beach, and little really small things that make a difference. For me, being able to see the ocean, swim in the ocean, be around it, hear it, that gives me a sense of calm and a sense of joy. And
Yeah.
that's why I think that's the thing that people have taken for granted, because they feel I'm asking for too much. I've got a good job, I get paid, got a nice house. God, I'm so ungrateful for not being okay with my lot. I shouldn't ask for being able to be by the sea. I shouldn't be able to ask for it to work flexibly so I can get a workout in or eat healthily. I should be grateful for what I've got, because all of these people have lost their jobs. And I think that guilt from people, I heard a lot. Yeah. And it would always be oh, well, I'd like a new job, but I should be grateful because my boss lets me take an afternoon off if I have a doctor's appointment or something. Oh, these people are just trying to be grateful for something that you can ask for more. That's fine. That doesn't mean you're ungrateful for what you've got.
In addition, and in parallel, technology has been enabling us to live in different ways. We just haven't, to a great extent, been taking advantage of it. So I'm very curious as to the different experiences that some of your other friends as well had. Did some other people that you knew in London and elsewhere make some not necessarily as radical decisions to go to Bali and start living in Bali, but did they make some changes to their life?
I think a lot of people have gone back to status quo now. I think they might have done at the beginning, but I think this societal pressure, especially with a lot of the layoffs and redundancies, I think people have
Right.
gone back to, well, it was good while it lasted, but now let's just go back to the way it was. So I would say for the people back home, not my clients and not the people in Bali, I can't see many radical, not even like medium-sized changes. I think it's gone back to the way it
Interesting.
was. Yeah.
In the US, we haven't had a recession, whereas in England, the recession and a lot of economic factors, I think, but England actually has had a lot more flexibility in the working environment than, for example, the States ever did. So you have this ping. I'm going to be a rebel. I'm going to start this company. What was the key mission for you of this company?
I guess that's evolved over the last few years. I've been working with a business coach lately, and we pinged the big why of
Yep.
what I'm doing, and it started off of enabling people to live a life with freedom and flexibility. And I think
Yep.
the real why that goes to the bottom of that is I genuinely want people to live a life with fewer regrets. Like there's certain regrets I can't help them. But like I for one, I know people in my family that they have a lot of regrets, and they say, well, it's too late for me now. I'm not going to make any changes. And I just think, what a waste. We should be utilizing what we're born with, and really making the most of that. So for me, it's like I want to be on my deathbed and be like, I lived life the way I wanted to. I lived life the way that was helpful to others, but was also something that was my path and my decision, and not one decided by someone else. And I want that for other people. I want, because a world with, it sounds really cheesy, but like a world with happier people, like it's a happier place, right?
It's not cheesy at all. Who are the people that you find that you're helping? Obviously, you have a good network in England. I know that in Bali, I haven't gone for a very long time to Bali, and it's a cool place. There's a very international community. There are all kinds of people from all kinds of places. And I imagine that's even more so now. Who are you finding who are the people who are prepared to take that leap? Whether there's been something that went on back home that caused them to want to take or be able to take that leap, or that they had to get away. If there is a typical story, or maybe there are 3 stories that keep coming up so that you can see a thread.
I went into this thinking it was going to be mostly people who wanted to be digital nomads, people who wanted to travel around, people maybe in their early 30s who read about digital nomads when they were in the lockdown and were like, I want that life. But I've realized that's only a small percentage. Those people exist, but
Yeah.
so the nationalities, I counted the other day, it was 38 different nationalities that I've worked with, which really
Great.
surprised me. So people from all over the world, from Mauritius to South Africa to Cameroon, like literally every continent, and
Right.
from age 21 to 68. So like
Love it.
the age group, like, so I love talking about Al because he's like, I spoke to him the other day actually, so he's doing great. So he'd been working remotely since 2013. I'd always worked remotely, And he was like, I want to work until I'm 72. He got made redundant at 68. And I was like, I wanted to retire at 72. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get another job, and that's going to
Okay.
happen. And he was determined, and he did it within, I think, about 6 weeks or something, 6 or 8 weeks. He got something. But he was telling himself the stories. I'm too old. Who's going to hire me? The negative
Right.
self-talk. So he's like one example. He just wanted to be at home with his dog, with his wife, and like he didn't necessarily need to travel. He just didn't want to go into an office. So that's a more common example I'm finding.
Okay.
Then you got someone in the UK. Her husband's got a brain injury. She wanted to be at home to be able to look after him.
Sure.
Other people, they wanted to move to Spain from the US. A lot of people from the US wanted to move to Spain, actually. So they wanted to find a way that they could do that.
Right.
So yeah, really different examples. Some people, health conditions, people who had never worked remotely before and wanted a taste of it, people who'd never been not been in an office for 10 years and didn't intend to, and people who wanted to be able freedom to travel around.
And for the people who've never worked remotely, how do you counsel them? How do you approach such a diversity of situations and people and ages and all the rest of it?
One example, I'm sure Jack won't mind me mentioning his name. He'd been a kitchen fitter for like 15 years. So he really was not a remote job. And it comes down to, and people don't believe me when I say this, it sounds like a bit like airy-fairy, but it doesn't come down to what you've done before or what your experience is to a certain degree. Obviously, it's going to be easy if you've got a bit of experience. It comes down to your mindset and your attitude and I'm going to do this no matter what. Like when I quit my job and set up the company, I didn't have anything to go to, but I knew I would find a way to do it. And those kind of people are the ones that succeed. That yes, you're going to have days where you're like, oh, I'm never going to do this. I feel bad. I've got a rejection letter. There's going to be moments. You're not just going to be like, yes, I can do this every day. And this is what I'm talking with people about. You're going to have moments. It's going to be a roller coaster. But the people who are like, super driven, I'm going to do this because there's no choice in the matter. I want this life. They find a way and they figure it out. But learning how to organize yourself, learning how to be, driven, they gain these skills in other areas of their life. Because they've had deadlines before. They've had a 9 to 5 where they had to be at that time at that place. So to a certain degree, they pick those skills up in other areas. I hate the term transferable skills because a skill is a skill. It's just in a different area. So I think they have that within them from the most part. And if they don't, they can learn it.
And I'm curious as to how Jack suddenly had this decision that he didn't want to be a kitchen fitter anymore and wanted to work remotely.
Meeting me, actually. So like I met him
really?
years ago. Yeah, I met him years ago at a festival in Bristol, and he was working for someone, and then he became self-employed, and then he was like, do you know what? I'm going to get into during the pandemic. His work dried up. He started making his own desks, like standing desks, and then he started learning how to build a website and started learning how to sell them. So then he ended up getting into SEO and doing that instead.
Oh,
yeah, it was super
love
cool.
that.
Yeah.
Shifting someone's mindset. When they come to you, they may well have an idea, but an early stage idea. They've obviously got to the point, let me just talk to somebody and find someone who can help me with this. At the same time, that mindset you're talking about, they don't necessarily have that. How do you help them shift their mindset? Because that's not the easiest thing.
No, it's not. It's confidence to a certain degree. There's people that outright probably don't have the right mindset to start with, and they're not the people I want to work with. They're people who are not, this is a goal and this is what I'm going to do to a certain degree. But it's deciphering on those discovery calls that I have with people. Is it just not a great mindset right now, or is it a lack of confidence? And a lot of the time it is just a lack of confidence. So one of the parts of what I'm coaching people on before we get into the nitty gritty of how to do your CV and how to apply is really working on your confidence. And I'm not a confidence coach. I'm not like qualified in that area, but there's certain tricks that you can learn to develop those. And there's a really, really good book called The Four C's of Confidence by Dan Sullivan. And that everyone should read this book, because what it essentially talks about is people feel like they need the confidence to start something, but what you actually need to do is the commitment first, and then you're going to get the capability, and then you're going to get the, I always forget the third C, but essentially there's 3 C's to get to before you get to the confidence, and then the cycle continues.
Ah, I like that. Okay, that's going to be in the show notes. So what has been this journey of yours? Where are you now? You've said it's evolved over time and you've been figuring out your why. Do you feel that it's still going to keep evolving? I imagine it is, but do you have a sense of how that's going to happen and how your mission is changing? And do you see the audience that you're helping? Do you see that changing as remote working is now normal and is likely only to grow?
Yeah, good question. Definitely is evolving. I've got like too many ideas to put on paper. My vision for Remote Rebellion is to not just focus on the job seeker side, but to, like, I miss doing recruitment, if I'm honest, and I'm good at it, and I love connecting people. Like, I just, whenever I'm talking to anyone, whether it's a good habit or a bad habit, I'm in my head like, who can I introduce them to? They'd be really good if that person met this person.
I have various friends who are connectors, and that's just what they do.
I love it, and I get a real buzz out of it if someone like becomes friends, or they get a business connection, or they like the romantic connection, whatever. I'm like, yes, I was right. They will get on. So I want to utilize that and have Remote Rebellion to be the go-to place for people looking for remote work, whether that's freelance, whether that's perm, and for companies hiring remotely. Just the same way you go to, or you did back in the day, maybe you went to eBay if you wanted to buy or sell anything online. Like it was, that's the way I see Remote Rebellion in the next 5 years. I want to do that through connections, through online events, in-person events, and really getting people together. So that's the direction I see the company going in, and I'm super excited about it as well. And maybe you asked another part of that question, so sorry if I've missed it.
Well, yes, I did, because I typically ask multi-part questions. The other part of the question was about how remote working is growing, and in that combination with digital nomadism. There were so many people who said, right, rather than just traveling to different places, I want to experience different places. I want to work in different places. And now I can. How do you see that from the people that you're talking to, from the ideas, the sparks, the energy, the excitement that so many different types of people in different countries have? How do you see the remote and digital nomad groups growing and evolving over time?
Oh, it's a tough one, because when you say remote work is growing, a lot of people would disagree with you, because there's this big return to office move happening with a lot of organizations. But I do believe that remote work is growing, but it's kind of growing in the background slower, and you're not seeing it as much, because you're not seeing all of these small startups that are growing in the background. We're seeing these big organizations that are like, right, back to the office, guys. The fat cats want to see people. They want to sit behind their glass screen and watch all of their minions. I'm being a bit crasser, but like that's the way I see it.
Well, only 4% of US CEOs are prioritizing return to the office full time. Remote working is here to stay. It's hybrid for the most part, particularly for bigger companies. But for smaller companies, there's much more flexibility. There's much more flexible hybrid. Fully remote seems to be smaller and stable. There are fewer companies that appear to be allowing, for now, fully remote. However, the tight labor market is not going to go anywhere, and people who have specialized skills are going to have the ability to put their foot down. And I just think there are going to be many more people who are coming into the workforce with different expectations, and the smaller, younger companies are going to have managers and executives who are more understanding and accepting of it.
Yeah, I really hope so. And I think that's where we're talking about the hybrid and the fully remote as well. Like I personally, I'm not anti hybrid. I'm anti being told and being forced when you go into the office. And a lot of hybrid companies do that. And I know they have their reasons. as long as
They're
they're
not good reason.
upfront. No, I don't think so either. And I try and like say, okay, just because it's not for me, not for everyone. But I, I just think there's a lack of trust and there's a lack of, yeah. And as long as companies are transparent about this, hey, you need to come in 2 days a week on a Monday. People can choose. They can choose with their feet whether they actually go and apply to that company, right?
Right. Looking at a lot of data today, and whether it's 2 days are required / encouraged to go to the office. Now, whether they're required or encouraged, a lot of people just aren't doing it still. They're just not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a lot of these mandates, 3 days a week is a very common one. They're still not going in 3 days a week. And the good news is that the productivity levels seem to be high. What I really want people to do is just commit to whatever they have and then make it better. And then they can move closer to flexible hybrid, because fixed hybrid may sound easier, but you're just not going to get the benefits. You're not going to help
Yeah.
each person do their best work. If this is a baby step, it's not going to be a great baby step, but ultimately you're going to need to go to that flexible hybrid, which is going to allow more people to work remotely fully.
100%.
Just to wrap up, if somebody's listening who is at any age, in any country, and they are thinking about, it's been niggling them that they actually are considering a different work experience, what would you suggest? And of course, that's very different depending on which perspective they're coming from and what age they are, where they are in their life arc, and what work needs to mean to them. What would you advise? Where should they start on this journey of exploring remote working?
I would say to explore more reasons and asking themselves questions of why they want this. So like, what is it that they are not happy with in their lives, and what do they want that's going to make them happier? Like, is that moving to the coast? Is that starting an hour later so they can get a workout in? Is that like being able to put their kids to bed? You know, like whatever. Like, what are these little things that's going to enrich their lives, and how are they going to be able to get that? So they need to ask themselves more questions rather than remote working is my solution. Because I think people see these images of sipping coconuts on a beach and doing a bit of work, and then they have this like idea. And I sell those kind of photos, but then they don't see me like trying to struggle with the Wi-Fi or like having issues with something else. So there's downsides to everything. So investigate the downsides as well, and ask and listen to some podcasts. There's loads of digital nomad podcasts and remote work podcasts. Speak to people who are working fully remotely and say, what are the negative sides of this? Like, don't just look at like how all the great benefits are. Are you going to be able to cope with the downsides of it as well? Whether that's moving somewhere and experiencing a bit of loneliness and not having community to start with. Like, do you will you miss the water cooler chat? Which is a load of rubbish.
Should have seen her face. Yeah.
And that's when people say, "Oh, well, do you not get lonely if you work remotely?" I'm like, if your only source of social interaction is in the office with the people you work with, maybe you need to be questioning that. So, do you not have another community? Do you not have a gym community, or do you not have like people in your social club, or like in the pub even? Like, do you not have another social network that you and working remotely? I have more of a social life now, and probably too many communities and networks than I ever did when I worked in an office, because it wasn't all centered around the pub. So it's different for every nationality, every culture, I guess, as well. So ask more questions to people, and they can come to me and ask me questions as well. What are the downsides? What are the pros? Don't just look at all like this looks like fluffy and nice on a beach. There's going to be downsides as well. And what I would do is experiment. So go and ask your current employer, or don't ask and ask for forgiveness rather than permission. Go if you're working remotely from your country, but you want to experiment outside of your country. Go for a week or two. If you're in the US, go to Mexico, work from there for a little bit, and see what you think of it. See what the challenges are. Or if you don't work remotely at the moment, try and persuade your boss, and there's ways of doing this. I go into a bit of detail about how to do this. Persuade your boss that you can work remotely for a week and test it out. Work from home, work from a cafe, work from a friend's house, and see what the challenges are for you.
Great advice. Thanks so much. I know that there are lots of people who think about how they might be able to change their situation now and just explore something different. I have to ask you, last of all, Bali How long have you been there now? 3 years, it sounds like. Where's your next stop? The background looks gorgeous. It really does. Where next or not?
I don't know is the answer. No, I do know. So I've been here for 3 years on and off, but I've been back and forth to Europe in between. So I'm going back to Europe in April. I do a few events, like nomad events and remote work events. So I'm doing the kind of circuit there. And then I don't know. Maybe Central America, maybe Thailand. I'm more of a slow mad as well. I don't like to just move around all the time for the sake of it. There's usually a reason why I'm going somewhere, if it's an event or something. So I don't know. I'll let you know in a year.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Michelle. It's been such a delight speaking with you. And thank you for sharing all these insights in your journey.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again so much to Michelle Coulson, founder and chief remote rebel of Remote Rebellion. You can follow her on LinkedIn, as well as on X at Remote Rebellion and Instagram at Remote_Rebellion, or go to the website at remoterebellion.com. Immediate action tip. If you want a remote job, first check why you want it. If you aren't happy with your life, what would enrich your life, and how can you achieve that? Remote working may not be the solution, but if you think it is, also investigate the downsides. Then experiment to see if you like it. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend and like it. Why not also write a quick review wherever you listen? For regular video updates, curated useful articles, research and information, follow me on LinkedIn and sign up for my Work in Progress newsletter there. Thanks for listening. Until next time.